Good afternoon, the Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And, what do you want to talk about? I'm one of these type of people who grew up with a cynical nature, and that I watch things like how things come out in terms of timing. And always wonder if there's a motivation behind certain information that comes out either right before a big event or the big event comes out in response to the information that came out. Yesterday morning, we all heard upon the Republicans who were able to finally go and see this documentation concerning the Biden bribery story, where they go in and look at it from the skiff, where no one else is supposed to know about this stuff, but they have a clearance to go and read it. And then they come out and in vague terms talk about the Biden crime family and how Biden took $5 million of money and this and that concerning his son Hunter Biden. And, everything was gearing towards that. I mean, between that and the Durham report, there was plenty for people to be crowing and to make political hay over. But then we also get, on the other side of the story, the impending indictment of Donald Trump by Jack Smith concerning the classified documents. We heard rumors upon Mark Meadows going in to testify, that if he cut a deal to testify, though I think Mark Meadows did come out and try to claim that was absolutely false, and nonetheless he did go and testify. Now, also, in the midst of all this was coming down, Trump himself went onto Truth Social and pretty much telegraphed that he was going to get indicted. And in the usual manner of Trump, where he unleashes a all-cap diatribe of how everything was so unfair to him. So the indictment finally came down, and now we see the fallout of it. From last night into today, if you go on social media, how many people are crying tears of blood in the political media and politicians over this. This is the death of democracy. This is the end of the democratic republic. This and that. And especially those who are presidential hopefuls who already have come out and said that they're going to, like, on first day, when I'm president, I'm going to pardon Donald Trump. Or I'm thinking about pardoning Donald Trump. Well, that's fine. They want to do that. So, however, when it comes to pass, that he did indeed get indicted, and he will have to answer in court for that, which includes arrest and other such things of that nature. Is he going to go on a perp walk? I doubt it, because as usual, any other American who goes through these type of charges, it's more likely that they'll spend some time in jail before they get bailed out and go back home. While Trump will probably be just like nice wrestling comfortably. Maybe not even show up in court. Maybe just do some video thing where the lawyers will do that for him. So many things are going on with the lawyers too. Evidently, 2 of them resigned from his staff. Even though the story, I guess, is going that he fired 1 or 2 of them. I don't know. But I want to just go ahead and read to you from Washington Post what the charges are that Trump is being indicted on, and how many counts. Because there are 7 particular separate charges, but there are multiple counts of these charges. So this is coming from the Washington Post. Here are the 37 charges against Trump and what they mean. A court on Friday unsealed the federal indictment against Donald Trump and an aide over classified documents found at his Mar-a-Lago home and the men's alleged efforts to keep the government from finding the material. Here's what we know about the charges against former president brought by special counsel Jack Smith. First, how many charges does Trump face? Trump is accused of violating 7 federal laws but faces 37 separate charges. That is because each classified document he is accused of holding onto illegally is charged in a separate count, and his alleged efforts to hide declassified information from the federal investigators is charged in several ways. His longtime aide, Walt Nauta, faces 6 charges, but all 5 of which are also lodged against Trump. Trump indicted on 37 counts over classified documents. The first count of willful retention of national defense information related to Trump's alleged unauthorized possession of national defense documents and his failure to turn these over to law enforcement officials. There's 31 counts of that. Withholding or concealing documents in a federal investigation related to Trump and an aide allegedly concealing boxes of classified documents from law enforcement officers and the grand jury. There's 3 counts of that. False statements related to false statements about classified documents being turned over to law enforcement and an alleged scheme to hide Trump's continued possession of the material. There's 2 counts of that. Conspiracy to obstruct justice related to the alleged conspiracy between Trump and an aide to keep classified documents Trump took from the White House. Only 1 count of that. That's fine. What are the charges against Trump? Espionage Act / unauthorized retention of national defense information. Trump is charged with 31 counts of violating a part of the Espionage Act that bars willful retention of national defense information by someone not authorized to have it. Such information is defined as, quote, any document, writing, codebook, signal book, sketch, photograph, photographic, negative, blueprint, plan, map, model, instrument, appliance, or note relating to the national defense or the information relating in the national defense, which information the possessor has reason to believe could be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation. Quote, technically, that information does not have to be classified, but in practice, the law is almost exclusively used to prosecute retention of classified materials. In Trump's case, the prosecutor says that all but 1 of the 31 documents is charged with illegal retaining were marked as classified at the secret or top secret level. The unmarked document concerned military contingency planning, according to the indictment. So, all but 1 of the 31 documents was top secret or secret. A conviction does not require any evidence of a desire to disseminate the classified information. Having it in an unauthorized location is enough. But the crime requires a willful mishandling of material. The possessor has reason, quote, the possessor has reason to believe could be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation, unquote. Charges are generally not brought without some aggravating factor making clear the retention was not accidental, such as evidence of intent to share the information, signs of disloyalty to the United States government, or simply the volume of documents taken. Unlike other government employees, the president does not go through security clearance process that includes pledge to follow classification rules. But Trump received requests from the National Archives and Record Administration, NARA, and subpoenas from the Justice Department indicating that the documents in question were classified and needed to be returned to the U.S. government. Prosecutor says that he instead sought to hide them from federal investigators, and while the president can declassify most information, there is a process for doing so. He can't simply Professor X his way and mentally declassify things and not notify anybody. That's just my ad-lib for that. There is a process for doing so. According to the indictment, Trump twice showed classified information to others. Once while saying that the document was still classified and lamenting that he no longer had the power to declassify it. Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Trump is charged with the one count of conspiracy with Malta to hide classified materials from federal investigators by lying to the FBI about what is found at Mar-a-Lago and moving boxes of documents out of the storage room before agents searched the home. Trump specifically is accused of suggesting that one of his attorneys lied to the FBI and helped hide or destroy documents. Tampering with the grand jury evidence. Trump and Malta face 2 counts of trying to keep evidence out of the grand jurors' hands. 1 count of withholding the classified documents and 1 of corruptly concealing them. As part of those charges, Trump is accused of trying to persuade one of his attorneys to help conceal the documents, while Malta is accused of hiding evidence by moving boxes of classified documents. Concealing evidence in a federal investigation. For the same alleged conduct of hiding and classified information at Mar-a-Lago, Trump and Malta separately face 1 count of concealing evidence with the intent to obstruct an FBI investigation. False statements. Both Trump and Malta together face 1 count of scheming to making false statements, for allegedly hiding from the FBI and the grand jury for that former president still had classified documents in his possession. Trump faces a separate count for causing his attorney to falsely claim in June 2022 that all classified documents in the former president's possession had been handed over in response to a subpoena, according to the indictment. Malta alone is accused of lying to the FBI by falsely claiming that he had nothing to do with moving any boxes. What is the possible penalties that does Trump face? The maximum punishment for each count of an unlawful retention of national defense information is 10 years in prison. Conspiracy to obstruct justice, tampering with a grand jury investigation, and concealing evidence in a federal investigation all carries punishment up to 20 years. Each false statement charged is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. If Trump is convicted of all charges, the sentence could run consecutively, amounting to hundreds of years in prison. But federal defendants are rarely given maximum possible punishment. He does not face any mandatory minimum sentences. Sentences in unlawful retention cases vary widely, depending in part on how sensitive the material is, how much of it there is, how long the person held onto it, of his or her cooperation with investigators. A Defense Department employee in Manila who took home a small amount of secret-level information to work on a classified thesis project served only 3 months behind bars. Kenneth Wayne Ford Jr., who was found guilty at trial of bringing home national defense information after leaving the National Security Agency and lying about the case, received 6 years sentence. A former NSA contractor who over 2 decades amassed a huge trove of highly sensitive material, including hacking tools and the details of overseas operations, was sentenced to 9 years in prison. A naval sailor who took pictures of classified areas of a nuclear-powered submarine and then destroyed the evidence was sentenced to a year in prison for retention and obstruction. Trump later pardoned him. Retired General David H. Petraeus was given probation after pleading guilty to sharing classified information with his biographer. At the time, the crime of mishandling classified information, as opposed to national defense information, was a misdemeanor with a maximum punishment of a year behind bars. It became a felony during Trump's presidency. Yeah, he made this a felony. What he's facing himself. Just a little tidbit there. What other criminal charges does Trump face? Trump is charged in New York State Court with unrelated crimes for conduct of that predates his presidency. He is accused of falsifying business records to hide payments during the 2016 campaign made to an adult film star in order to keep her from saying publicly that she had an affair with Trump. Trump is also under investigation by the state prosecutor in Georgia, who is looking at his efforts to overturn President Biden's 2020 victory in that state. Smith is also investigating Trump's attempt to stay in office after losing the presidential election, including his pressure on officials in battleground states and fundraising off false claims of election fraud. histories of investigating involved Donald Trump. In addition to his involvement in more than 4,000 lawsuits over the course of the half-century in real estate, entertainment, and politics, Donald Trump has been a subject of investigation by federal, state, and regulatory authorities in every decade of his long career. Has Trump responded to the charges? The former president described himself as an innocent man, being treated unfairly in comparison with Biden. Classified documents from the Obama administration were discovered in Biden's Delaware home late last year by lawyers cleaning out his home office. Biden's attorneys turned those documents over to the NARA, and the president gave the Justice Department permission to search the home, as well as his beach house and think tank office. The White House says that only a small number of documents from Biden's vice president tenure were found. The special counsel has been appointed to oversee that investigation. We will get into the apples and oranges of that later. More on the Trump classified documents indictment. The latest. Former President Donald Trump's indictment was unsealed, detailing the charges and allegations of obstruction and conspiracy. On Thursday, Trump said that he had been indicted in connection with the discovery of hundreds of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home. It's the second time he has been indicted since March. Just get light updates with that. What happens next? Trump will appear in federal court in Miami for an arraignment on Tuesday at 3 p.m. The case. The criminal investigation looks into whether Trump took government secrets with him after he left the White House and obtained a subsequent investigation. Here's what we know about the document case. And this is all stuff that you clip from the Washington Post. Can Trump still run for president? While it has never been attempted by a candidate from a major party, Trump is allowed to run for president while under indictment, or even if he's convicted of a crime. That's, I guess when you think about it, the Founding Fathers never really imagined or dreamed that anyone who was convicted of a crime or be charged in a crime as an indicted for a crime that would be going to trial for a crime would have the temerity to continue to run for president. They didn't think that this would be a kind of a common sense thing that no one would. But, they didn't imagine Donald Trump. So yeah, that's the breakdown of all the charges, 37 charges, of the 7 counts that he's been indicted of. Alright. I'm going to read another further thing. This is from commondreams.org. Quote, "This is a secret. Look!" Trump admits on tape he didn't declassify documents. Quote, This is close to a recorded confession as you'll ever see in a case like this," says former federational prosecutor. I cannot speak. Blah, blah, blah. In an audio recording that is reportedly in the possession of federal prosecutors, former President Donald Trump admits he did not declassify secret military documents that he took from the White House after losing the election and failing to overturn the results. CNN obtained the transcript of the recording that shows the former president said, "As president, I could have declassified, but now I can't." According to the CNN, Trump was referring to a classified Pentagon document about attacking Iran. Citing several unnamed sources, the outlet reported that the audio tape captured the sound of paper rustling, as if Trump was waving the documents around, though it's not clear if it was the actual Iran document. It's like Joe McCarthy, waving a paper that says he has a list of communists, but it was a blank piece of paper. Quote, "Secret. This is secret information. Look at this," Trump says in the recording. The transcript shows, "This was done by the military and given to me. I'm special." Fresh details on the contents of the recording, the existence of which CNN first reported last week, came hours after the news broke that Trump has been indicted by a federal grand jury on seven criminal charges stemming from the classified documents case. The federal charges reportedly includes willful retention of military secrets and obstruction of justice. Former federal prosecutor Renato Moratti sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, argued that Trump's comments on the audio tape, as reported by CNN, appears to be damning for the former president, who has repeatedly said he declassified everything. Quote, "This is close to a recorded confession as you'll ever see in a case like this," Morodi wrote on Twitter. Noah Bookbinder, president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, added that the transcript is absolutely devastating. Quote, "Just a blow in the hole in the defenses Trump has been putting out," Bookbinder retweeted. CNN reported that in the tape meeting, which took place in July 2021, at the former president's New Jersey golf club, Trump was complaining about the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. The meeting, reportedly attended by Trump's aides and two unnamed people working on the autobiography of Trump's former Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, occurred shortly after New Yorker published a story by Susan Glasser detailing how, in the final days of Trump's presidency, Milley instructed the Joint Chiefs to ensure Trump issued no illegal orders, that he could be informed if there was any concern, according to CNN. Quote, "He said I wanted to attack Iran," Trump says on Milley on recording. "Isn't that amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look, this was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. We looked at some. That was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him." Glasser reported that Milley had been engaged in an alarming effort to ensure Trump did not embark on military conflict with Iran as part of his quizzling campaign to overturn the results of the 2020 election and remain in power. The chairman secretly feared that Trump would insist on launching a strike on Iranian interests that could set off a full-blown war, Glasser wrote. In an audio tape recording to CNN, Trump tells his aides and others at the July 2021 meeting that he has, quote, "all sorts of stuff, pages long." The FBI seized nearly 200,000 pages from Trump's Florida residence during the August 2022 raid. "Wait a minute, let's see here," Trump continues. "I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. Look at this!" Yeah, Gus, exactly. Alright. Let's go through a few things here. One of the first knee-jerk defenses that I've heard from people immediately about his indictment towards the classified information was the fact that President Joe Biden and Vice President Mike Pence also had classified documentation in their houses. So why aren't they going after him, but they're going after Trump? Well, as noted, Biden's own lawyers found the classified documents. That was in his home and at his think tank and at his beach house. They immediately gave it back to the proper authorities. Mike Pence, when they found classified information in his home, immediately handed it over to the proper authorities. Both welcomed investigations into it. And there's a special prosecutor concerning the Biden case on that. They're fully cooperating with that. Whereas Trump, who spent 18 months having these documentation, lying about handing over all the documentation, have a lawyer lie, claiming that they have all the classified information. They gave them all up. There's no more. From that 18-month period, from the ending of Trump's presidency to the raid at Mar-a-Lago, 18 months. Trump hid documentation, lied about it, ranted and raved about it. When the raid initially happened, what was the first thing that Trump said? Oh, this stuff was planted. They planted this on me. And then, almost in the same breath, he says, and I want them back because they're mine. If it's yours, then it couldn't possibly be planted since you just admitted you were in the possession of it. See, that's how logic works. That's how living in reality and the logistics of temporal physics works. If something was planted, then it wasn't in your possession. But since it was in your possession, that you yourself said was in your possession, it's not planted. How some of this stuff was so secure in random boxes filled with news clippings with Trump's name on it. Or secured in a storage shed. Or in a rather meticulous, rather messy office. Now, there's history on Trump showing people information. Early in his presidency, during the time of when Russiagate suspicions was really picking up, Trump had Sergei Kislyak and another Russian official to join him in the Oval Office. He denied the American press to join. He allowed Russian press to join. And they went into this secret meeting, go in, go out, and the Russian media discussed how Trump showed them top secret information concerning Israel. Israel's own information that was top secret to them. Trump showed that to the Russian officials. Why? Speculate with me, theorize with me. Imagine you're a 10-year-old kid that you got some new fancy toy that you want to go and show everybody that how great you are that you have this. It could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as him wanting to show these Russian officials that he was smart. Look how smart I am. I'm so smart, I'm trusted with other people's top secret information. See, look, this is top secret, so look at it. Look at it, unauthorized people, to be looking at this information. How smart am I? When it comes to the legal entanglements that Trump is going through, I remember the first indictment concerning the misrepresentation of his business information concerning, the attempted shell game they tried to do with giving Stormy Daniels money to keep her all quiet about her adventures with his little mushroom. At the time, I said this on Twitter and social medias and at Middle America, that this is the least of his problems. And I marveled at how many people who went on Twitter, all the individuals of these conservative talking heads, be it political media or politicians themselves who need to glad hand and be sycophants, how they were crying tears of blood over this. He's being indicted. This is not fair. And it continues on with this new indictment. Now, this is now the death of the Democratic Republic. Holding somebody accountable is not the death of a Democratic Republic. I heard tell from people who are knowledgeable, who read into these things and understands the concept of nuance, that they're fearful that if Trump does indeed go to court and doesn't go well for him or he gets convicted, that there'll be blood in the streets. See, I have a problem with that. Because the implication of that would be that we should do nothing. That in order to preserve the peace, that we should let things slide here. Because of how dangerous, potentially dangerous, Trump is. You can acknowledge the potential threat involved when it comes to that. Because like any good con man, any good person who knows how to manipulate the emotions of those that are his followers, Trump's own words and deeds has inspired people independently, without him ever saying to specifically go out and do something, that they go out and specifically do something. The El Paso shooter comes to mind, who in his manifesto echoed Trump's words about invaders. Early in his campaign, one of my favorite things to bring up in terms of how he incites people is that Trump fans did go, assaulting a homeless man, beat the shit out of him, pissed on him, all because they thought he was illegal. And when Trump heard about that, his official stance on it, well, they were just being patriotic. They were patriotically inspired into violence, using it through Trump's rhetoric. Now we hear the opinion of those conservative individuals who are continuing to cry tears of blood over this, and doing the comparing and contrasting between Trump and Biden, and the Biden story, and the Durham report, and the alleged bribery case, which some of the Republicans saw and they're running with, although they're not giving any specific information, and there is no real evidence other than this testimony that was on this document that is anonymous. It's not like finding papers inside a box, under a bed that is like top secret or anything, that kind of evidence, but just this hearsay evidence, where they go and they talk about the Biden crime family and talk about these eyewitnesses, and then they go, oh, the witnesses disappeared. Gone away. Or you get when they're doing their committee meetings on the weaponization of the Department of Justice, and they bring out these former FBI agents as examples who are witnesses of this, and it turns out that some of them were paid by Kash Patel to testify and go into this in against the FBI, who were suspended from the FBI for their activities, some of which was involving their behavior towards the defendants of January 6th. Yeah, that's an unbiased source. And one of them, and people like Jim Jordan defends one of the guys who was being paid by Kash Patel. He says, well, they have to feed his family. They have to feed his family. Of course he's going to pay him because he has to feed his family. I'm sorry, does being FBI agents with the qualifications to become FBI agents make you devoid of having any other job skills? He has to feed his family. He can't get a fucking job? None of them can? I'm only qualified to be, federal agents. I can't bag groceries for the necessity of feeding my goddamn family. In terms of when we started getting the economic crash from 2007 and how people were losing their jobs, I was always marveling at how many people didn't go into the workforce who, for the necessity of feeding themselves and their family, even as a meantime while they get their shit together. You don't see these people going into retail jobs or, trying to keep up with like the rent and so forth. Says, I'm only qualified for this high scale position. I only wanted to do that. I'm sorry, but having a job is not something you want or not want. It's kind of a necessity if you want to pay for food, goods and services, medication, rent. And if you're cut off from your major form of income, concerning these people who were FBI agents and were suspended, they have to go to a Trump official political hack like Kash Patel, that the only way they're going to feed their family is that they take payoffs in order to speak favorably towards this Republican committee on weaponizing the DOJ. Weaponizing the DOJ, the FBI. Calls for defunding the FBI and the DOJ. Recently, the FBI conducted a nationwide sting to halt the trafficking of human beings in terms of sexual servitude. Hundreds, including children, that were being used in this purpose. They broke the ring, the FBI did. And you wanted to fund that. Now, for those who think that the FBI was this great and noble institution and only now is completely and utterly corrupt, that goes after people for political motivations, you haven't been paying attention, have you? The FBI, since its inception under the rule of J. Edgar Hoover, constantly went after people for political purposes. J. Edgar Hoover had wiretapped Martin Luther King Jr. and played those recordings to people like Roy Cohn, including the audio of him having sex with his wife for amusement. The FBI has been used as a political tool for decades. The people who are crying now about this towards Trump didn't give a shit that it was happening to Martin Luther King Jr. or to anybody else. But somehow now it's corrupt. Now it's politically motivated. Yeah, sure. Hillary Clinton during 2016 was under investigation by the FBI. Those last few weeks before the election was decided, when they went after Anthony Weiner's laptop and they were combing through emails trying to find anything, and it turns out that what they concluded was Miss Hillary Clinton did mishandle some information and she was irresponsible, but it was not criminal. So they closed the investigation days before. That wasn't a political hit? And may I remind you of Trump's perfect call with Zelensky, that in order to give out the alleged prequel pro of we'll hand over these defensive military ordnance, these Stinger missiles and so forth, in order to protect your country from a possible invasion, which did happen later. In return, would you mind, being so above as investigating Hunter Biden for me? Just be a pal. No, that doesn't ring a bell. That's not political influence. Not going after Hunter Biden and Burisma that we heard about, that we heard about this laptop before Biden and Blinkley did the went through trying to withhold the information off of social media and Twitter, trying to, according to the alleged information, that was trying to hide what was going on with Hunter Biden because of election, because that would be detrimental to the election. Sorry, I don't think that really matters. I don't think people who's like, oh, if I saw this, then I'm just going to vote for Trump now. No. And we still don't really know what's inside the laptop, even though they themselves claim that they have the laptop. And, I hate to be like that person who is so crass in just ridiculing like the information that was being withheld off of Twitter, that somehow is election interference, and no one wants to acknowledge that Trump did the same thing to deny tweets, to make sure somebody's tweets concerning him was taken off Twitter. In terms of the actual documentation involving that scenario, Twitter execs before Elon Musk gave the opportunity for both sides to do such things, to ask and request that certain information be withheld. But here's the thing about that, is I'm bringing all this up. And this is where it contrasts against Trump and contrasts to those who are supportive of Trump. Whereas they're crying tears of blood of him being investigated, him being indicted, this is all a vast conspiracy against him by the entire DOJ, even though it was a couple of zealous agents of the FBI who took oppositional fucking research that was first developed by Republicans, given to Hillary Clinton, who didn't even use it during the election, but then did weaponize it enough to send it out into the media, so that the media itself did the dirty work, because, I'm sorry, the media is involved in that, and we have to go through why that is in a moment. I lose the train of thought. So all that occurs. But nonetheless, that information, oppositional research, the dossier, was developed by the Republicans, given to Hillary Clinton. Clinton didn't even use it during the campaign, and was used later during Trump's presidency. Trump's behavior towards Putin did not lend to the credibility of him, which we can have a laundry list of examples of that. But that doesn't really pertain to anything, because that's not evidence. I mean, that's just circumstantial shit. But to say that the DOJ has been weaponized now by Biden, that's, and ignoring everything from the past, that's ridiculous. But in terms of what I was saying, because now I got the train of mind back on again, toot toot, that while Trump supporters, Trump sycophants in the politics, who wants the Trump fan base to support them in their future elections, so they're going to claim that they're going to pardon Trump, and they're all waving their hands at how this is a fucking outrage. If you came to me and asked me or told me that you're going to investigate Biden, or there's evidence enough to indict Biden, and if there's a grand jury pulled and the grand jury says to indict Biden, you know what I'd say? I say go ahead. At some point, we have to stop the us versus them shit and go back into the right and wrong shit here. There is no comparing ride or die Biden fan base to opposed to Trump's fan base. Hate to break it to those, especially on those on the left, but Biden didn't win the election because people liked Biden. Biden won the election because they didn't want to vote for Trump. They didn't want Trump back into the White House. I know personally as a voter, Biden was maybe at best my fourth choice. From both 2016 to 2020, in the primaries, I voted for Bernie Sanders. And I have reasons not to vote for Biden again. So much so that it almost is over the line. It's just about over the line that even if Trump comes back as a candidate, that I won't vote for Biden. Never vote for Trump, but I won't vote for Biden. Because he perpetuated the border shit that Trump was doing. And if you've seen any of these videos at all, you know how I try to be pretty consistent on inhumanity when it comes to border. When it comes to what happens to these human beings who come. I'm not the Johnny come lately who suddenly realizes that what's happening at the border is a humanitarian crisis on January 20, 2021. That it was for years. So miss me with that bullshit. Oh, this is Biden's crisis. Fuck you. This is everybody's crisis. Every presidential administration. And the government. You know, the last time there was a confirmation, what's the right word I'm going for here? Like a really complex, the big complex immigration reform bill. You know, last time we had an immigration reform bill, 30 years. 1990. That was the last time we had a serious conversation upon doing a reform of our immigration system. Because we were having immigration issues back then to now. But I digress. No. If Joe Biden, if you have a suspicion that he was doing wrong with him and his son, investigate it. If your investigation leads to actual evidence, send it to the grand jury for an indictment. And if it's indictable and they indict it, do it. That is the difference between someone like me and one of these Trump supporters, these individual Trump supporters. And again, I preface this the individual as opposed to going after a whole group, because not every person, including every Trump supporter, is the same. Some people can be flaming with tinfoil on their heads, saying outlandish stuff, you know, screaming at the media at any Trump rally, getting all red-faced and whatever. And then there are actual common sense people who vote for Trump for whatever positive or negative reasons, but that is their choice to do. If you're an innocent person, yeah, getting investigated might be shitty. Maybe even getting indicted might be shitty. But if you're innocent and it's proven that you're innocent, isn't that the better thing? Instead of hiding? Trump couldn't be bothered to go to any of the court hearings concerning E.J. Carroll, who he was found liable. He was found that he did indeed commit sexual abuse towards that woman. But what people are splitting hairs, well, they didn't say rape, then I really shouldn't have to pay all that money because, you know, they proved that I didn't rape anyone. Yeah, let's split hairs over the difference between a mushroom penis and fingers. Fuck you. How people would defend that bullshit, fuck you. What's wrong with you? Doing anything against anybody's will. That should be the yardstick. But some of these defenders is as well, he didn't like forcefully like penetrate her or anything, so we can't really be constituted rape. What the hell is wrong with you? Would you split that hair if that was your daughter? Or if that was your son? Christ the fucking mighty. And it's gonna be, and it. People still want to marvel about, how certain amounts of these Trump supporters are so ride or die that they will ignore everything and, turn a blind eye. This is my blinders. I'm not seeing any of this shit. And, the DOJ is completely corrupt and it's all a big hit piece against President Trump. If that's the case and they go after Trump and he's proven innocent, isn't that a good thing? Wouldn't that be a victory lap for him? What if that would ensure his return to the White House? I don't know. I'm going to try to land a plane here because I know I've been going a lot longer than I normally do. They talk about this being the end of the Democratic Republic, what's happening to Trump. The same thing that happens to any other American citizen. I said this in a previous video, how, if they could go after a president, they think, well, they go after you. What is wrong with you? They go after people every day. Since the inception of this country. You are crying over the fact that Trump is being treated like any other American that is accused of a crime, that accusation yielded to a grand jury to lay down an indictment, to indict them. Why are you so worried about Trump and don't give a shit about every other American? Because some of you think that Trump and his fan base is still your meal ticket. That's why. Or some people just want to own the lib so bad that it doesn't matter if their guy does anything wrong, lies, be a piece of shit, because as long as he's lying and being a piece of shit, but he's doing it on our behalf, then that's great. You could have had, like, an investigation, which wasn't investigated, to go into, indictment land during Trump and his presidency, especially during the Mueller thing, where, despite the fact that Mueller had no recommendation for any criminal application being handed down towards Trump, he prefaced it that despite the fact of that Trump committed 10 acts of obstruction of justice. And the only reason that he did not pursue that or encourage anyone to pursue that because as president he was immune towards indictment and prosecution. Because as president, it's a memo, not an ironclad rule, but it's nonetheless a memo that people adhere to. These are serious charges. And he's convicted, if he's convicted, a lot of years could be offered up for his punishment. If he's convicted and he doesn't serve this amount, then that is a problem. We're worried about Trump supporters, flipping their wigs, taking out a gun and committing violence in the name of Trump. Certain people go on Twitter, whenever Charlie Kirk or one of these other little political gerbils, lament over the plight of poor precious Trump, and then people go, well, we should get all armed and defend our president at Mar-a-Lago. So you are prepared to shoot and kill someone if they come knocking on the door to lawfully arrest Donald Trump. Because that's the implication. And Biden got no loyalty like that. No one's going to be ride or die for Biden and pick up a gun if someone comes knocking on his door. It was brought up that people could be fine with going after Trump as long as people go after Biden or Obama for the acts that they were alleged to doing or had done, but no one investigated them over. That if you're gonna go after him, go after them. I don't have a problem with that. Go after them if you want to, if they want to. But that doesn't disqualify going after Trump. Crying about political outrage of someone going after a political opponent, which Trump was doing during his 2016 election. How many times did he lead the locker up chants? How long did, during his presidency, he get Bill Barr to go traveling around the world to find information to dig up on Hillary Clinton? And what was the Durham report other than political reaction towards the investigation that Trump was getting himself? That despite all the wrongdoings and ills that was being presented in the Durham report, no criminal referrals, recommendation of no charges. It wasn't criminal. It was just a political investigation. Because in Trump's mind, and it goes back to his call with Zelensky, all you need to do, as far as he's concerned, is say that you're investigating. That's all that matters. Because it's not about the actual act of decision making and the responsibility and consequences. It's about the perception. Because right or wrong, here or gone, whatever, how many people, including myself, has questions concerning of Trump's mental, emotional state of being. He is a master. He is a savant master of perception. And he knows that in this day and age of social media, all you need to do is perceive an investigation. Just say that you are investigating them. And let it take the rest. It's the same thing as happened in the 2020 election, where he's, as according to the investigation involving Georgia, he says, just say that there was election irregularity. Just say it. And me and the Republican Congress will do the rest. Just say it. Ending with this. People say that this indictment is the end of our democratic republic, that this is the end of our Constitution. All these other melodramatic phrasing and term. You want to get melodramatic? I'll get melodramatic. You know what would be the end of our democratic republic as we know it, as we have known it since the Constitutional Convention and the first presidency of our United States under George Washington? Is re-electing Donald Trump. Not because he's an unqualified, disqualified piece of shit, which he is. That's not the reason why it would end our democratic republic if he was reelected again. That's not the reason why his behavior denotes that of an emotionally stunted 13-year-old. That anything that doesn't go his way, it's not fair. It's not fair to me. Mwah. No one's more of a victim than I am, I can tell you, Mr. Near Billionaire. But why it would be the end of a democratic republic as we know it if Trump was reelected is his actions and his inactions on January 6th. without his attempt to subvert our election process, to incite people to go march on the Capitol. You go march there, I'll go with you, I'll go there. He didn't go there, but I'll go there, I'll be with you. Doing nothing for hours. While he had whipped up his supporters, he and the other talking heads whipped up their supporters, talking about this was a 1776 moment all over Parlor, that it was going to be wild on January 6th, that he watched from the White House as they broke into the Capitol to stop the certification of the vote at his behalf, at his behest. Threatening the lives of congressional members, threatening the life of the vice president. Committing vandalism. Stealing shit. And then after hours of ignoring the calls for a National Guard to go in, and then sending a nice, lovely message. Go home. We all love you. You're special. But go home. That's why. Because if he gets reelected after committing these acts against our government, against us, all because he lost a fucking election and perpetuated a lie that incited violence, that continues to perpetuate the lie, he gets a second bite of the apple after all that, then none of this matters. None of this matters. It will no longer matter. That will be the end of the United States as we know it from George Washington's presidency up to now. That doesn't mean it's going to be a civil war. That doesn't mean it's going to be really dramatic. What it means is that something new will emerge. From the ashes of all the patriotic nationalism, all the songs, all the venerations of our country, our pledges of allegiance, all that bullshit, what will rise is something that just clearly says that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to hold to any oaths. It doesn't matter what facts, what evidence. It doesn't matter to investigate. It doesn't matter to pursue truth and facts of right and wrong. You can get away with it. That's all that matters. If Biden did wrong, investigate it. Find evidence. Take it to the grand jury. Call for an indictment. If he's indicted, execute the indictment. No more nor less than any other American that goes through this. If it happens to a president, it could happen to you in terms of what they said about Trump. It happens to us every day. It's time to wake up in the idea that Trump is not special. He doesn't get to wave his hands. Professor X's way of saying that he declassified shit. If he did wrong, and there's evidence of him doing wrong, he gets indicted like every other American citizen accused of a crime. He doesn't get a pass. And he certainly doesn't get a pass for fear of what might happen. Because if we bend to that, then that is once again another death to the Democratic Republic. Because as long as someone can inspire people to stand up and commit violence in his name to protect them, to dupe them into risking their own lives, their own financial futures, their own families, to go traveling to DC, to go break into the Capitol to crawl their way through a broken door and get shot by a guard who was doing his job, protecting the people that he was guarding. Hate to fucking break it to you, but Ashley Babbitt died because of Trump. Roseanne Boylan, who collapsed, who was dying on the ground, trampled to death by people so eager to get into the Capitol building, to break into it, that it didn't matter to them that they were stomping over a dying woman. That is also Trump's responsibility. He did that. That is why he becomes elected again. That's the end of your democratic republic. Some of you would applaud that happening. So miss me on your worry about it, because that piece of shit got indicted. And as I said, the other side of the coin in terms of indictment is that you could be found innocent. A jury can come back and say that Trump is innocent, that he's not guilty. And you know what? Me, as an avid Trump critic, that some will say that I have Trump derangement syndrome, that hears me go on and video after video after video concerning Trump, if he was found innocent, I would accept it. Because that's how the process works. Can you say the same if he was guilty? The ranter rants because the urge to rant always rises. And in this country, and this is our time of politics, in this time where we suspend our ability to think rationally and critically, to have the nuance to know that there is good and there is bad, and you can teach both, and you don't have to ignore one and venerate the other, that we can be fucking adults. You give me plenty to rant about. And I'll see you next time.